Well, for years, I travel a lot, and sometimes I'll go into a shoe store in another country. Chile was probably the last time I thought about this consciously, and I'll buy a pair of shoes. So now I'm wearing a Chilean shoes. There's no way I'm going to know what it feels like to live in Chile because I'm wearing someone's shoes that was manufactured there. The problem with empathy is that it requires self-negation. In other words, who we are, our experiences get in the way of being able to experience somebody else's experience. So when I was a child, my mum would tell me, Ashok, it's very cold out. You should put on a sweater. Now, she said it most sympathetically, but that's actually not empathy. If I was hot and sweaty, and I always was as a child, to put on a sweater was a nightmare for me. And so if she was being empathic, she might have said, Ashok, are you feeling hot and sweaty? Yes, Mummy. Well, you probably don't want to put on that sweater then, do you? No, Mummy. And then we would have had a better result. So the problem with empathy with the shoes metaphor is if I put myself in Prashant's shoes, that's me in your shoes. I'm still experiencing me. If I get myself out of the way and then I try to experience you as you, I'm not contaminating my capacity to experience you. And let me tell you why that's important. If you take two people who've come out of exactly the same experience, let's say that they both have cancer, they're going up in an elevator to get their cancer treatment, their heads are bald, they look at each other, they can't say, I know exactly what you're going through. Because they've had their entire lives as well as that experience.
True.
How somebody experiences something is not just based on the moment. It's based on everything that they are as a person, their soul. And so if I do this with one hand and this with another hand, yes, we call that sympathy. When there's two things that have the same feeling, that's sympathy. And sympathy is a very useful emotion. And we see that when people are getting married and everyone's crying. We see that when there's funerals and everyone's crying, and the different, very, very different tears. But if you went up to someone and said, I know exactly what you're going through, the chances of you being correct are very close to zero. It's much better to say, I think I know what you're going through, but I'd like to hear your view of it. How does that feel to you? That's when empathy starts.
As a leader, if I have to empathize with my people, where do I start?
The basis of empathy is caring about each other, even if it inconveniences you. When someone comes into a position of leadership, there's an interesting flip that has to happen. And that means that you have to care a little bit less about what people think of you and care a little bit more about the leadership issues, which is getting people to do what maybe they want to do and maybe what they don't want to do. The problem with that, though, is that many leaders are seen as unfeeling and uncaring. Like, I don't like my boss because my boss doesn't care about me. That's such a common thing. And the problem with that is not that the boss doesn't care about them. The boss needs to get a job done. And what has to happen, from my perspective, for leaders to present themselves as more empathic, is they have to care about the person as well as the job. And the more looked after, the more understood, the more safe the person feels in the workplace, it's likely they're going to do a better job. There's going to be more loyalty, there's going to be more passion and compassion, there's going to be more heart in that job if they feel safe. But if you want to be liked, you're going to have trouble being a leader. See, there's that little flip that happens.
So the balance that you're speaking about, the job and caring for your people, is the key here. If you only focus about caring about your people, is when you become somebody who wants to be liked and who just wants to take care of people, then the job suffers. But if you're somebody who's only focusing on the job and if you're not taking care of people as people, then you might get results, but in the long run, everybody suffers.
What's really interesting about empathy is a little bit of empathy goes such a long way. You don't have to be empathic all the time. You just have to be empathic some of the time, and sometimes only occasionally to really have a powerful effect.